car crashes, defective products, dangerous drugs, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, the attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis, Wright, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts with the attorneys of Hollis, Wright.
You know, drunk driving is a tragic and preventable crime. It can cause immeasurable pain and loss to victims and also to their families. On this edition of The Attorneys, we want to delve into drunk driving, the rights of those affected by drunk driving. I'm Art Franklin. Welcome to The Attorneys. This, of course, is Josh Wright, the managing partner at Hollis, Wright. And Josh, this is one of those tough subjects to talk about, but it's also one of the areas that you have sort of like a sweet spot. So we're going to kind of have a fireside chat about drunk driving. And first, let's talk about the impact itself. Let's get into this whole definition of the effects on those victims.
Yeah, so, you know, it is super prevalent. There are some statistics out there, for example, that 1/3 of all commercial vehicle accidents relate to substance abuse of some sort. We used to just talk in terms of alcohol-related claims, but really now it is drug and alcohol-related claims causing and contributing to accidents. And, you know, there are 10,000 people that die every single week in our country related to some type of drunk driving, drug driving event. And so it is a very prevalent issue that I've committed 25 years of my practice to because I believe in this area, and I believe that the victims are just that. They are victims to this. However, their family members and their extended family also are impacted in these. I was touched by a case that I had one of the first years that I was in practice where it was allocated to me. I may not have been capable of handling it as good as I should have back then, but I learned a lot in that case with a senior partner that got me involved in it, and it touched my heart. And it's just been kind of a focus of what I've been involved in for many, many years for that reason.
And when we talk about laws impacting those who are affected by drunk driving, we're talking about laws that goes back to the early 1900s, right?
Yeah, you know, I do lectures all over the state. In fact, just did one about a month ago in Birmingham, really how the statute, the alcohol-related statute, or what we call the Dram Shop Act in Alabama, was created in the early 1900s. And in short, it is a statute that is out there to protect victims that have been injured because of the intoxication of someone that causes or contributes to an accident. You know, Art, for the last 25 years, I've mentioned that I've committed a big portion of my practice to this area of the law. And let me just give you some good examples. Back in 2010, 2011, we were involved in amending the regulations, and I was specifically the one involved at our firm involved in amending the regulations that we use for purposes of giving guidelines to bars, restaurants, convenience stores on how they need to operate. One of the things we did back in 2011 is we amended a couple of those regulations to help injured victims be able to recover more and to guarantee they had insurance to protect them from a bar, convenience store, and restaurant perspective, but also to make sure that we amended the regulations so they were more pro-victim than they were pro-drunk driving. In addition to that, most recently, I was involved in the 2023 amendments to the Alabama statute that specifically addresses the Dram Shop Act and what a victim has to do to be successful in a case. And so I was heavily involved in that and played a big role in it. And I was involved, my amendments were actually accepted. And we, I think, helped injured victims in many respects make sure that they have viable claims on a moving forward basis.
So Josh, what were you seeing? What were some of the trends that you were noticing that made you decide that, look, we've got to make some amendments here. We've got to make some changes in the law because it's not really protecting the victims of drunk driving like it should?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a complicated answer, but let me just see if I can simplify it. In short, the way that our Dram Shop Act in Alabama is structured, it's broken into two separate parts that we can unpackage one by one. But the cliff notes are that you have what's called the Dram Shop Act, which is to protect an injured victim against injury from a drunk driver or a drug driver. And then we also have claims that protect parents in circumstances where their minor was provided alcohol illegally in violation of Alabama law, and the parents have viable causes of action. Each of those, like I mentioned, we could unwrap individually, but there were needs in the Dram Shop Act that generally impacts just injured victims, not minors, where we needed to make sure that, for example, every bar, convenience store, and restaurant is properly insured, has sufficient insurance to protect an injured victim to the extent that that happens. And one of the things that had developed over the last decade is it had become very difficult to get insurance in Alabama under the Dram Shop Act. Insurance companies had left Alabama, and so the legislature was attempting to get more insurance companies to come into Alabama, and one of the ways to do that was to amend some of the rules and to take away a component that is called strict liability in the Dram Shop Act to make sure that insurance companies could be more competitive in Alabama, which would lower insurance premiums, but still provide insurance for convenience stores and bars and restaurants.
And so really we're talking about the type of situation where maybe you should get on the phone and call someone and tell them to watch this show, because Josh is really unpacking a lot of things, and I know that this is the type of show that's a little bit emotional. A lot of families could be dealing with some things that takes them back to a very tough time. But Josh, something else I wanted to talk about is that whole area of compensation, because we've got to deal with that as well when you lose somebody to a drunk driving situation.
That's right, and it's a great point. Let's unwrap a little bit the Dram Shop Act. So the Dram Shop Act, in general terms, not to get too complicated, but it protects individuals that are injured in person, property, or means of support. And we see all of those claims. You know, I can give you examples of each. Property damage. Someone's intoxicated and they mow into a house. You'd be amazed the number of cases we have like that, where they run off the road and go through someone's living room, sometimes not even causing personal injury, but tremendous property damage. The Dram Shop Act protects that family who had that loss there. Injured in person, whether it's a drunk driving, a drug driving accident. It could happen at a bar where there's an altercation, a shooting, other significant fights and whatnot that you see. The Dram Shop Act protects that too. And then it also protects individuals in circumstances where there has been a support that a loved one may have provided that has been lost because of the Dram Shop Act. So, as an example, a breadwinner, a father is injured by a drunk driver. Well, not only does that individual who was injured have a claim, their children and their spouse equally have claims for the support that that individual may not be able to provide them in the future. So it's a good reason why you want to go to a seasoned lawyer that understands how to evaluate these claims to make sure that you protect yourself, because there are multiple ways that you can attack the drunk driver and the bar, the restaurant, and the convenience store to make sure that you're fully and completely being compensated. Now, one thing I want to talk about when we come back is a little bit about the way that minors are also protected under the Act, and that's something that's been around since 1986. We handle minority claims all the time, and I want to talk about that too.
All right, we'll get into that. Of course, we're just getting started as we're talking about drunk driving, the victims of drunk driving, and protecting the rights of those victims. A lot to unpack here. As I mentioned, go ahead and tell someone, jump on television right now and watch the attorneys, because this is something that can be very helpful for you. You can also jump on the phone and call one of the attorneys at Hollis Wright at 1-844-LAW-TALK. That's 529-8255. Let them know that that call is free and it is confidential, and you can reach someone right now. They're standing by, waiting to hear from you. The attorneys taking a break, but we'll be back after this.
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis Wright, a personal injury law firm, and thank you for watching The Attorneys. We hope you, a friend, or a loved one never needs legal counsel for a case. But if you do, the goal of the show is simple: to provide answers and legal counsel when you need it the most. Your call to the show is free and off air. So if you have questions specific to the show or related to other accident or injury topics, call, email, or text us. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, or go to hollis-wright.com and click on the Contact Us button. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for spending it with us and watching The Attorneys.
The Attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright, are here to serve you.
When we started the show in 2011, my goal was to do what our firm does best: help people answer questions related to real-world legal issues they have in their lives in a way that's not intimidating to talk with a lawyer. If the issue is important to you, it's equally important to us, and we're ready to talk with you at no cost.
Yeah, oftentimes people are confronting various legal issues in their lives that really run the gamut of a lot of different legal practice areas, such as bankruptcy, criminal law, civil law, such as personal injury, divorces, domestic relations. And to be able to have a show once a week that covers those practice areas and answers people's questions in those areas, that's really the main objective of the show.
We use the resources of the many lawyers at our law firm to create a plan that has a lasting impact for each person that calls or texts. And we also give back to the community at the same time. We are here to serve you, the viewer, each week on The Attorneys. Hollis Wright handles cases every day involving someone injured by a distracted or impaired driver. Every single day. If you've been the victim of distracted driving, call us. Our attorneys are standing by. At Hollis Wright, your result matters.
Welcome back to The Attorneys. As we're talking about the rights of victims in a drunk driving situation, we can't overstate the importance of having legal representation when you are a victim or your loved one is a victim to a drunk driving situation. And we talked about that with Josh. Josh, in addition to all the experience he has as an attorney here, you've also been appointed to the board of MAD, that's Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and how important that is, because that allows you to have even further reach.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And, I'm really honored that MAD approached me to get involved to assist them initially, and then ultimately I got appointed to that board. What I think it means to me is that they recognized my commitment to protecting injured victims related to drunk driving accidents, because that has been their focus for many, many decades, right? And
Absolutely.
So what I do as a lawyer, I think aligns with their vision. And so for them to ask me to be a member of the board, I think is something I'm honored that I was asked to do, and super excited that I've been able to get involved in. And you're right, I think it increases the breadth of what I do, because not only am I out there litigating hundreds and hundreds of cases over the last 25 years in this area, I also lecture and teach lawyers all over our state now, Art, on how to evaluate dram shop cases, how to find these cases, and how to protect injured victims. But then add to that also, now I get to help MAD and speak at their events and assist injured victims that they have that go through their system and help counsel people. So it really just shows the breadth within which one can get involved in this area of the law and commit themselves to. And so I've been super honored to be a part of MAD, and I will tell you this: the executive director of Alabama and Georgia and their team, they're incredible. I mean, you got to be a really passionate person to be an executive director and a team member for a nonprofit organization, and I can't say enough about how great their leadership is and how many great individuals from different walks of life, whether it's parents of victims that are involved on the board, whether it's corporate America involved on the board, whether it is individuals who have been involved in the bar and restaurant industry involved in their board, lawyers, etc. They run the full gamut of potential resources to be part of their board, and I was just lucky to be one of those people asked to be on the board.
When you talk about the vision that they have and the greatness of what they do and who they are, it's great that they recognize your value and bringing you on board. And we know that one area that Matt is always involved in is during the prom season for young people. And as we were heading to break, you kind of teed up the fact that you want to get into the rights of young people in a situation like this.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so, sometimes when we do these shows, Art, it makes it sound like we think every bar, restaurant, convenience store is doing it the wrong way. And that's not fair at all. Mm-hmm. We never argue that at our law firm. There are folks that are doing it the right way. In fact, Art, I have been asked over the years to consult with multiple bars to teach their bartenders on what do you do it the right way? How do we comply with the Dram Shop Act, right? And so, I love that. That's another thing that I've been able to get involved in to help limit these types of things. But the area you're talking about is so very important, and it's near and dear to my heart, and that is what's called the Civil Damages Act. And we have a separate statute in Alabama that protects individuals that provide alcohol to minors. And it's interesting, you'd think, well, the Dram Shop Act protects that, but the Dram Shop Act protects, as we talked about in the first segment, people injured in person, property, or means of support. The Civil Damages Act claim and statute in Alabama protects the parent of a minor that's injured because someone provided alcohol to a minor. Mm-hmm. And when you really unwrap that, it makes sense that the minor is not the one that owns that claim. It is the parent who is trying to make sure their minor is doing it the right way, but their minor has been influenced. As we well know, we've all had children growing up, and I still got young guys in our house. They make bad decisions at times, and they're easily influenced. And so there is a law out there that protects parents during prom season and throughout the year to make sure that those parents are protected in circumstances where their minors have been involved in getting alcohol, receiving alcohol, and suffered an injury. And that is a claim that's owned by the parent, and it is a punitive-only claim in Alabama, which means that you can only get punitive damages to punish and deter those that serve and provide alcohol to minors.
And you've been working with a number of different organizations and agencies, and you talked about working with the bars, a collaboration in that regard. What about the insurance companies? Do you work with them as well as an attorney to kind of get a handle on the situation?
Yeah, so I lobbied back in 2010 to have insurance premiums increased in Alabama. Not premiums, but the policy limits increased. In Alabama right now, you only have to have $100,000 of insurance or a net worth of $100,000 of insurance in order to hold a liquor liability or liquor license in Alabama, okay? That hasn't changed since 1986. And I was lobbying back in 86 trying to argue, hey, look, we need to do everything we can to try and make sure that these limits are somehow subject to an inflationary metric or something else where they get raised over time. Every time you have a drunk driving accident, it's catastrophic. I mean, drunk drivers, they make bad decisions. They cross center lines. They're operating, very heavy motor vehicles. They're going too fast. They have people in their car. Music's too loud, etc. They're catastrophic circumstances that come out of these. And $100,000 doesn't do a lot. So yes, but it's not on the side you think. It's not counseling insurance companies. It's trying to get the insurance companies to raise the value of these insurance limits in Alabama, and I'm still fighting that fight. The legislature has not agreed with me to date, but we're going to continue to fight the fight. And since I've been practicing in 1998 forward, I've been working really hard on trying to get the insurance limits that were set in 1986 changed, and I'm not going to quit. We're going to continue to work on that. And right now, we're actually about to propose something coming up that's going to increase those limits to $250,000 or $500,000.
We'll keep fighting the good fight. Something else I want to talk about, and I'm wondering if we can get into this, the types of claims that are available in situations like this. So we're talking drunk driving, the rights of victims of drunk driving. I also want to remind you, there is a QR code on your screen. Take your phone out, scan that QR code. You will then be able to ask a question online. You can reach an attorney at Hollis Wright. You can click on our social media platforms there as well. So this is an easy way for you to get in contact with someone at Hollis and Wright who will actually take your call. It's free and it's anonymous. Stay with us. We're talking drunk driving, the rights of victims on the attorneys. We'll take a break. We'll be back after this.
Thank you for watching The Attorneys each Sunday night, where we come to your living room to provide free legal advice in a confidential, off-air setting. Unfortunately, with the number of calls, texts, and emails that come in during the show, we can't always get to everything. But know this, Hollis Wright is open all week long. You call us at 844-LAW-TALK and we're going to answer your question for free. Thank you for watching The Attorneys, and we look forward to seeing you and talking to you soon.
Hollis Wright handles cases every day where a drunk driver causes an accident and injures someone. If you've been a victim of a drunk driving accident, give us a call for a free consultation. And remember, at Hollis Wright, your result matters.
Welcome back to The Attorneys as we are discussing the rights of victims affected by drunk driving. Josh Wright, the managing partner at Hollis Wright, is leading this discussion. Is really kind of a fireside chat, as I mentioned earlier. But let's understand, these cases themselves, and how do you evaluate these drunk driving cases?
Yeah, so it's a great issue to discuss. One thing I would say for certain is you really can't do this on your own. You're going to need someone that's a seasoned lawyer that understands these cases. Imagine this. Imagine an automobile accident happens on a Saturday morning at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's on a rural county road in Alabama, and your life has been turned upside down, you or a family member, and you need help and you need assistance, and you're not quite sure where to start. You may be grieving, you may be dealing with hospital course, and you need someone to be able to assist you. Our law firm has a team in place that hits the ground running in these cases. Not only do you have to work with the law enforcement officers that were involved in these accidents to get statements, you have to be able to secure black box downloads. You may have experts in the area of toxicology that get involved. You may have experts involved in accident reconstruction. Potentially even it may dabble over into product liability, depending on kind of how the accident happened and what circumstances arose out of the accident. And you need to have a team in place that can do all of those things at one time. And I tell people all the time, and I think it's something that I've believed in, I learned from an older lawyer years ago, and that is you have a lot going on right now post-accident. You manage your family, and that's what you're going to do best. Let me manage the stress of the litigation side of this. And ultimately, sometimes we may come back and say, hey, look, as sad as this event is, there is not a culpable party other than the drunk driver, and the drunk driver may not even have insurance. And we have to advise people of that all the time. But a lot of times what you find is there is a culpable party. Again, not every bar, restaurant, convenience store doing it the wrong way, but they are professionals, and they are to evaluate with their liquor liability license through the ABC board. They are professionals and are to evaluate when they're serving alcohol at the point of sale whether someone has signs of visible intoxication, and there are a lot of ways you can figure that out. But they have an obligation. So you want a law firm that can evaluate all of these things, not just what do we do now that the accident happened, but what happened back at the bar, restaurant, convenience store? How did we get to this place? And that is just as important as dealing with the implications post-accident.
Because Josh, on the surface, it seems like these cases would be very easy to prove. Yeah. But that's not the case, right? It's
not the case at all. And I'll give you a couple examples. A lot of times, a drunk driver comes to a hospital and they have a presumptive positive urine screen that evaluates they have alcohol in their system, but a blood test is not done and a blood alcohol concentration is not pulled by a police officer. Happens all the time. Those urine tests generally are not admissible in court. And so you would think, well, the drunk driver is going to get off in that case. Be careful, because you want to hire the right lawyer, because there are other things that you can do to protect the victim, to show that that victim has a viable cause of action and that the individual was visibly intoxicated under the circumstances. I'll just whip through them. There are 4 ways to prove it. One is through forensic evidence, like urine testing, like blood alcohol concentration testing, like drug testing. 2 is through witnesses that may have been available. And you want a lawyer on the ground finding the witnesses that were present and at the location that day, so witnesses can help establish that somebody was visibly intoxicated at the time they were served. You also can have what I call the bizarre acts of the drunk driver. Going the wrong way on an interstate happens all the time. I have 3 of those cases going right now, as sad as those are. Crossing over the center line on a straightaway as opposed to a curved road, running off the road. There are all sorts of things, going 200 miles an hour, as fast as you possibly can. And then habit of the individual can also be used to show visible intoxication. So I just say it this way. They sound like they're easy claims to prove. They're not always easy to prove. You want a seasoned lawyer on your side. And here's the deal. I do this for a living. There are great dram shop lawyers across the state that I've helped teach, and they're good lawyers out there too, and many that were established long before I got involved. If you're going to go through this event, you want to make sure you got someone on your team, whether it's me or someone else, to be able to assist you and lead, guide, and direct you through the process.
So as sad as all of that is, the most important thing is making sure you have good legal representation.
And get that done quickly, because we handle these cases on contingency. It's not going to cost $1 out of your pocket to be represented.
Absolutely. That's Josh Wright.
Great show.
With Hollis Wright. Want to thank you guys for joining us here on The Attorneys as always. We'll be back next week, same time, same place. We'll see you then.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by Hollis Wright.